Welcome, everyone, to the Hope Report, your light in the darkness, brought to you by the Lindell Recovery Network. I am Jason Perry.
And I'm Melissa Huray.
And we are so pumped to be with you for our second episode. We're not really calling these like our episode 1, episode 2. These are kind of prequels to our launch date. We just kind of wanted to make sure that with the launch of Frank, that we were here for you guys. And with all the news that's going on, we know that everyone could really use some good news right now. So
that's true. Jay, I want to thank you for your hard work getting our first episode up. You made a valiant effort and a lot of work to get it up there. And I know it's our first one, but I was pleased with it, and I hope it reaches a lot of people.
I think it will. And a lot of people will go back. Like as we continue to polish this and as we get our sets built and everything else, and the program evolves, people will go back to see what did we start like, and we'll probably be horrified then. But right now, it was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good debut launch. Thank you for being so candid and honest, and getting vulnerable with your testimony. That's always hard. As today I will be doing the same thing.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I kind of want to get into the news, particularly because of my background that I'm going to talk about, but also because of your location. So in your backyard, the Derek Chauvin trial, just got wrapped up with a disappointing verdict for anybody who's pro law enforcement, I think. And at the same time, there's a part of the country that is still very happy and celebratory over this whole thing. And the whole thing is just sad, in my opinion.
It is very sad. I didn't know if we were going to talk about this today, but you're right. It's gripped the state, the nation, the world probably. And going back to a year ago when this first happened, I have to tell you, I've been really just burdened by it, I have to say, because, and I want to be careful how I say this, because like you said, it's tragic. It's a terrible thing. My husband and I brought our kids to the site of the memorial that's about 25 miles north of us. Mm-hmm. We visited the George Floyd Memorial. We talked about racial issues with them. And at the same time, I've felt a lot of pain for Derek Chauvin as well. And just how, you were a police officer. He went to work that day thinking, 19 years with the Minneapolis Police Department in a pretty rough part of town. And he went to work that day thinking he was just going to do his job, and that's how it ended. And I keep thinking that he didn't plan for his day to go that way. But now we don't know anything about Derek except what we've heard in the news. But now his whole life is marginalized to this day. Yeah,
unfortunately, we've got addicted to modern day lynch mobbing is what I call it, which is this social media will come out and things spread like wildfire, and the public outrage, and everybody wants instant justice instead of letting everything take its time. And I really feel like there's too much information out there in the beginning. And you're seeing this now. You're seeing the police department to use it to their advantage to try to calm things down. In Ohio, where the police killed a 16-year-old girl who had a knife and was trying to stab people with it. So, they showed up, it's rough footage, but there's a big knife in her hand, and one girl's already on the ground. She's going to stab another one. And the police shot her 4 times. And, with Derek Chauvin, I am so disappointed in the justice system, and I'm so disappointed in the media. The media, like I heard Martha McCallum is her name.
I watched her too yesterday.
Yeah, where she went off on Chelsea Handler and said that they came out with this great verdict, and they said, was it a great verdict? I don't know if it was a great verdict because I don't think it was a fair trial. I don't think that. One, it should have been done there. I think it's impossible given the history of Minnesota and it's, in that area, to get a fair trial for that officer.
Yeah, it was plagued with problems from the very beginning. I don't know that anyone thought that it'd be possible for him to have a fair trial.
No, the jurors should have been sequestered. Right. They should have been in lockdown, and but they didn't do any of that stuff. They kept it out there because, the mob wanted a verdict and they got their verdict. And that's the part that, I feel like Derek Chauvin, who, I don't know anything about him. Other than he volunteered to serve and did 19 years where I didn't hear a lot of bad things about him in his previous 19 years. So I don't see a recurring pattern of him doing bad things. I mean,
I know he had some disciplinary things. They appeared to be relatively minor things that were dismissed. And I can imagine that will happen in the course of a career.
19 years in a zero mistake profession, where you're dealing with the worst of society, people just file complaints. I mean, I've had people file complaints against me that were legitimate, like I was grumpy or whatever. Fine. Okay. I was, being ordered to work and I was on my 49th hour straight working in a critical environment. I'm sorry I wasn't the most polite person in the way, but
right.
Whatever, to saying things I never said, I remember I went and picked up one guy in a warrant. And it was like we were long lost friends. I'm sitting there, I'm talking to him. He was a black guy. And we're talking the Patriots back when I used to watch sports. And, this, that. I'm like, I'm glad that, you're going to be able to get this behind you and take your life back and, trying to inspire him. And we get to the precinct and we go to booking. He's like, hey, can I see your supervisor? And I'm like, man, this guy's going to do me a solid. He's going to go in there and say that I was good to go. So he comes up and my lieutenant comes out there and he's like, I want to file a complaint against this officer. And I'm just like, what? Wow. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, for what? Oh, he kept calling me the N-word. Oh, I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
So that didn't go anywhere. It was obvious it was baiting, but I've been a fan of cameras for police departments because of that. Because it doesn't come down to he said, she said, right? They all want, everyone now wants to sue and everyone wants to be a YouTube star and everybody wants to sue. So it's automatically added another layer of complication into the police and civilian dynamic because we know the city settles. They just paid $24 million for, a guy who was a junkie who was never going to make probably $24,000 in the rest of his life, but they paid his family 20. Now there's 24 million reasons for everyone else to go after the police for everything else. Right.
Yeah. I think that's so great. You provide this layer of experience. You can speak to what it is like day to day being a police officer. Yeah.
I mean, when you get out of the car, there's a million cameras on you now. They're calling you every name, your family, every name, everything you can possibly imagine to try to get you to snap so they can sue. They just want you to make one mistake so they can sue. And that's where it's at now. And, and unfortunately, my heart breaks for law enforcement. That job was hard as it was to start with. Now, I was not a cop during Ferguson. I had just gotten out, and thank the dear Lord Jesus I did, because everyone who stayed in after that tells me it's absolutely horrible. But now with the Biden administration, and now you've got, all those cops who flipped on Chauvin and they all had motivation to throw him under the bus because they wanted to be left alone. And guess what? Eric Garland just announced a major investigation in the whole Minneapolis Police Department now. Yep. So guess what? You did that for no reason, right? They did it. They threw him under the bus. People testifying in ways that I've never seen cops testify, right? Mm-hmm. And the most shameful thing. I mean, it seemed like this verdict was destined to happen no matter what. Like I just can't believe the manslaughter one. I would get that's an accidental death, but murder means that he meant to kill him.
Yep.
And I just don't think that's the case. And then when you have Maxine Waters get up there and threaten violence against people, so that's intimidating the jury. They know that happened. Mm-hmm. They have somebody who testified for the defense have a pig's head dumped on his porch.
Yep.
And then you have the president of the United States weighing in on the verdict before it happened. Alan Dershowitz has already said that this case should be overturned on those factors alone. But I don't know if we have the intestinal fortitude to do justice here.
That's the fear. Yeah, I'm very fearful of that. And the thing that strikes me is this lack, it shouldn't surprise me, but the lack of compassion for him as a human being. I mean, everyone is, of course, asking for prayers for George Floyd's family. And George Floyd's family are millionaires now and are never going to have to work for the rest of their life. And, George Floyd was a felon who put a gun to a pregnant woman's belly, and during a robbery. Okay. And so I don't want to misquote him, but
I mean, this is a guy who was passing currency, committing a felony on fentanyl, on crystal meth, on all these things, and everyone's treating him like he's a saint. Like Nancy Pelosi got up there and said, "Thank you for sacrifice."
Yeah.
Like it's the most disingenuous, disgusting thing that I've seen in a long time, and it just really breaks my heart because I hope, and this is going to sound terrible, I hope law enforcement, in unison says, you know what? You want to do this? You want to judge us by this impossible standard? We're all sick for the next week. Enjoy, right? It's called the blue flu. And they're not allowed to by law to strike like that, but I think they should, because it's going to take a society without law enforcement for us to figure out what's most important. These people out there are doing this not for a lot of money. They don't get paid a lot of money. They all die very young because they have stressful lives. They live unhealthy lifestyles. They suffer from divorce, suicide, substance abuse, all these problems because it's a horrible, dark job that they do. And now we want them to be flawless like Superman, and it's impossible. Like I watched a press conference today where a reporter asked the same stupid question they do in every one of these cases. This is in Ohio. Why couldn't you shoot him in the leg? Because it's hard to hit what you're aiming for when you're under stress and there's a crowd going on. And, why didn't she put down the knife? Again, it's these things where we have to train civilians to obey police commands. But now they have all the incentive. They have millions of dollars of incentive not to comply.
Right.
I mean, imagine if you're suicide by cop, right? I'm depressed. Let's say I'm in a terrible position, and whatever, and I'm suicidal. I know that I can go out, and if I can get the cops to make a mistake and they kill me, my family's going to be millionaires. Mm-hmm. That's the new standard. That's what people are doing. Right. And, and it's just makes it until we're going to have serious, like at the end of all this, we're either going to have a society where crime is rampant because we don't allow police officers to do what they need to do. Or we're going to have tort reform where you can't sue police officers again, where we say that, if, everyone's got body cameras, it's all this stuff. And we have to have like a media lockdown where it's like no one's allowed to comment on anything till post story. That's the only way to do this right, and I'm all for supreme transparency, but let it play out and let the jury do their duty without poisoning them with social media. Like our justice system hasn't caught up with where social media is now, right? We're still acting like it's the 1970s and people have to go to a newspaper or watch the news to get this information. Now it's everywhere. It's on your phone, it's on your watch. It's everywhere. So, I think that as a society, our justice system hasn't evolved to catch up with the technology that is in the challenges of instant viral information everywhere.
Yeah. And I know this whole conversation is going to strike a chord with a lot of people and might be, inflammatory. And I keep thinking of it as, I think, what would Jesus do? I just think, do we throw Derek Chauvin away, throw him away and just throw away the key? Or could anyone mention praying for mercy or for him to come to Jesus? I mean, he's not beyond redemption. No one is. So why all these religious leaders come out like a bunch of Pharisees talking about, doing these public prayers and everything? Where's the prayer? His family, his parents, his friends. I mean, I just can't believe, and maybe I'm naive, that he's this horrible guy that we haven't really heard anything.
No, if he was Hitler, they would have showed all the evidence that make him Hitler. You know what I'm saying? And It's not like he's a serial killer out there who is out there doing this and hunting. He made a mistake. All right. I don't think, he obviously made a mistake. And is his life over because of that mistake? And if that's the way we're going to judge people from now on, there's going to be a lot of people in prison. Unfortunately, they don't judge the right like they or police or people on the right as they do with the left. The left gets every pity sob story in the world and every alibi, and they get minimum sentences. Whereas you go and now they go after conservatives and police, and they throw the book at them it's just so disgusting to me. Tucker Carlson covered this a few weeks ago. the dual justice system we have right now. Whereas if you're a Clinton or you're from the left, you can get away with anything. But if you're Roger Stone or anything else, their SWAT team is going to kick down your door with machine guns at 5 a.m. with a CNN truck out front to humiliate you in your underwear. Yep. Or what they did to Eddie Gallagher by going in and arresting Eddie Gallagher, who was that SEAL who was, pardoned as well by Trump. They dragged his family out in their underwear in the street. Now, they could have got him in his car on the way to go into the gate. Instead, they went and humiliated him and went after his family. That's disgusting. That's an abuse of power. And it's something that we really have to deal with. So
what do we do, Jay? I mean, I feel helpless. I mean, and I've talked to people about this. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, but I know people are afraid to say this, or they're afraid to say anything relating to perhaps, something was going on with George Floyd that wasn't right, that led to the situation. No one wants to say anything about that because we get labeled as racist or instantly hated on or dismissed.
Well, it really depends on the circles you run in, right? So I don't have any of those problems in my circles because I purged my circle. People, I have a conversation that I talk about often on Patriot Crusader Mission. And I've mentioned this, I think, in our first thing. And my question is, can you be truly friends with a Democrat? And if you're a conservative? And my opinion on that is you can be friendly, but I don't think you can be true friends. And I'll explain why I think that. My definition of a friend is somebody who, one, I can count on and who is never going to work against me if it can be prevented, willingly work against me, harm me. So if they're going to vote and legislate and do things that will put me in prison or in the grave, are they truly my friend to do that? Because they're trying to come for all of our freedoms. And there's a lot of patriots out there saying, you're not going to get our weapons. You're not going to take our freedoms. We're not going to stop going to church. We're not going to stop, worshiping the Lord. We're not going to stop doing any of these things. And if you are voting for people who are imposing this on us, you are either you're a useful idiot or you're directly, complicit in everything that's going to happen. I feel like we are Germany right before the Nazi Party took over. And I feel like it's to the point now where there's, alternate realities in the justice system. There's multiple standards where people can do one thing and they're treated unfairly, and others are treated this way and they're treated, another way. And it's really a frightening time. And, I think Newt Gingrich just put out an article not too long ago saying that our society is more threatened now than it was during World War II, and during the Civil War. That's how America is teetering right now because of wokeism and what we're doing to law enforcement and what we're doing with our election system, acting like people are that people can't get an ID if they want an ID. I just don't even fathom that.
Do you think that approach would cause us to burn our influence with people? I mean, if they know
the approach of which one of friendly versus friend?
Well, I guess once they know your political views, they make all these assumptions about you before they get to know you, or before, they think, oh, you voted for Trump or this or that. And then there's all these assumptions placed on you. Does that, rather than, saying I'm with the Jesus party, I hear people say that too.
Well, I mean, it all depends on how you want to do it. But the Jesus party now, because of the weak church, is all over the place, right? Yeah. I mean, you got people who call themselves Christians that say the Bible isn't necessary and that, the Bible is wrong and Jesus was a racist and all these other things out there. It's absolutely horrible. So we are called to speak truth. And I will speak truth and I will not hide. The days of hiding are done for me. And I've suffered in my business. I've lost friends. I've lost all kinds of things. And but you know what? My life is so much better now. I'm so much happier because I'm not living a lie. I'm living who I am and who God made me to be. And
I
that's to be
admire
a true
that
speaker.
a lot. I admire you for that a lot. I think I need to support people who stand for what is biblical. As far as candidates, that's what I
Yeah.
look at. I look at what do your values align with biblical values? Because I look at the Bible, that book is the guide for my life. And most of the time it's going to be conservative people who align with my values. I don't care about their personality so much.
I don't care. Yeah, that's the thing with Donald Trump. Like, when people want to go back to Trump wasn't even a Christian. He's not even a Christian. Okay. But he did more. He governed more like a Christian than most other Christians, than any other president in my lifetime. His work for the unborn and his work against battles against addiction, like addiction's real to him. He lost his brother to addiction. And it's incredibly real to him. And the war on drugs we were winning. We were doing way better than what we're doing now since the border problem. And that's what the new fentanyl thing, which fentanyl is just such a nasty drug. It's so out of control and it's so small. You can smuggle enough fentanyl to kill a city in a jar. It's crazy. It's not like cocaine where it takes kilos and kilos or bales of all of opium or whatever, right? It's something that's so potent that, it's crazy. And it's so addictive. People can't even wrap their mind around how addictive and how dangerous it is. And that's why we lose 60,000 people a year to drug overdoses. And it's just going to 60,000 a year. We're raging about, other things where we're talking about way less than that, mass shootings, which are still ultra rare. It's a handful of people. It's terrible. It's sad. Every time, what do we hear? The FBI knew about them and did nothing. That's the thing that we hear. But but the reality is everyone's been touched by addiction. I lost my little brother to heroin, he died of complications due to heroin. And, and it's just this, it really has come down to the point now where we have to choose to walk back to God. Our country was formed with God, meaning with God at the center. All of our rights, God was created, is mentioned in all of our founding documents. It is, and we have walked away from him, but he is so good and he is so merciful.
Faithful,
if we just, renounce our sins and turn back toward him, he'll forgive us and redeem this country. And that's really what we need.
14. Yeah, we need that. We were founded on Christian principles. We need his guidance. You can see the fallout of that everywhere you turn in the erosion of what's going on. And I feel so, I know this is not our home. This world is not our home. And every day I'm just faced with, this could be my last day. How fragile life is. And we have to have an eternal mindset where we're focused on what comes after this rather than this short time here on earth.
So you asked a little while ago, how do we deal with this? Where do we go from here with this despair and this discouragement we have? And you got to throw yourself into the word. You got to throw yourself into prayer, fast, pray,
right.
Do all those things and pray for a great awakening again. Pray for revival throughout the country because, I've got some bad news for everybody, even though this is a good news show. Things are going to get worse because God wants to create clarity so that everyone has a choice to choose him or not choose him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're going to continue creeping towards this, and God's people really need to be the light in the darkness, which is what we hope this show is.
Amen. I'm excited. I think he's uniquely placed us here for that. And you come against a lot of resistance. And he said, in this world, you will have trouble. He tells us that. That's a fact. Take heart, I have overcome the world. So we should expect that we're going to be persecuted for his name. But there's a great reward for that. And so I keep thinking that every day.
And just think about it. Jesus, the most gentle man, sinless man in the history of the world, was the most hated and is still the most hated to this day.
Right. Yeah.
Hitler isn't the most hated. Mao isn't the most, Stalin, no. Jesus. You can walk around, a Walmart with Mein Kampf or whatever in your back pocket, or the Quran, or, a million other different things. But you walk around with a Bible and someone's going to get up in your face.
That's right. We should expect it. I mean, doesn't Paul say, consider it joy, when you're persecuted? I'm paraphrasing, but. Yeah.
So again, prayer is the way we have to do this. And then the other part is, talking to people who are open to hearing your opinion. I don't waste my time with all the comments. Like, I had an anarchist come on one of my threads the other day and talk about how Christians can't be conservative and God doesn't exist, and on and on and on. And he was talking about all the evils that conservatism has caused. And of course, none of them were true. They were human things that humans did. But I asked him, I go, name one thing that anarchism has done for anyone. And crickets, nothing. That was the end of the conversation, right? Because there is no upside to anarchy, only the strong rule. You want to see anarchy? Go to Somalia. That is where warlord goes against warlord and the strong survive and everyone gets trampled in between, right? And that's the sad part of it all. So Christian conservatism has lifted the world out of poverty on a level that, that was impossible in the past. Right now there are less people starving in the world than ever before. More people out of poverty in the world, the higher quality standard of living everywhere in the world. We're in the most just time ever right now. And it's still not enough, and people are still unhappy and they're still raging. And it's because people are broken, very broken, like I used to be. And I am from time to time, and God puts me back together. As we all are when we need to seek him daily. So let me get into my testimony now.
Yes.
So Melissa was kind enough to share her testimony last week, and I want to get into mine this week. So you know who it is you're talking with or listening to, and eventually when we can take phone calls, hopefully in a month here, who you're going to be talking to and what our background is. So my story is, it's a little long. I'm going to try to give you a full version, but not the in-depth encyclopedia version. So my story actually starts with my grandfather on my mother's side. My grandfather was an orphan in a notorious orphanage in Newfoundland, where he was, raped and sexually abused by priests. And this soured him on religion and soured our whole family from that point on religion. So I was raised without God. In fact, there was a negative viewing of that. And one of his favorite cuss words was he would say, you take the Lord's name in vain all the time. And he was just so broken because of what was done to him. And, if I had to give a theme to my testimony, it's this: we're all born with a hole in the center of us. And your kid, when you have them, whoever is going to have that hole, and you better pour God into it, because the world is going to fill it otherwise. And that is what happened to me. And then we get wounded, and that hole becomes this tear in the middle, instead of it being, a place where you're a vessel to receive the Lord, it becomes this, shredded tissue where your heart is. And that hole typically happens when somebody reaches, in their upbringing. So for me, my mom and dad had me when they were 16 and 18. That didn't last very long. So of course, my mom's 16 years old, has me. We're a welfare family. I was exposed to violence at an early age. And my mom at that point, I can't even imagine. I mean, for a long time, I carried around a resentment of my mother because of the way things kind of turned out. But, now as an adult looking back, I'm like, I can't even imagine having a kid at 16. and being under them circumstances. So my mom eventually got remarried and had 2 more children. And when she was 16, she gave me my grandparents to raise me. She wanted to go off and party and find herself and all that stuff. It was the 70s. I was born in 1972, for those of you wondering.
So was I.
Yeah. So, you know, she wanted to go find herself. So my mom gave me my grandparents, which hurt. So then she gets remarried and brings me back in and has 2 more kids. My middle brother had Down syndrome and my youngest brother, Ryan, did not. So she ended up catching him cheating on her and she left him. And there she is. She's a mom of 3. She's now 23 with 3 kids on welfare. Like I remember sleeping in front of the stove in winter because we couldn't pay our oil bill. So we would heat it with the kitchen with the electric stove to, to stay warm at night. And eventually she decided that wasn't good for anyone. So she gave me to my grandparents. She gave my middle brother, Brandon, up for adoption. And she kept the youngest brother, Ryan. Well, this completely destroyed me because one, I absolutely loved my middle brother, Brandon. And my mom, it seemed like my mom chose my younger brother to me. She, talking to her as an adult, she thought she was giving me a better chance by going off with my grandparents. So anyways, a long story short with that is I get traded around my family for a long time. So my wound, the whole purpose of this is to tell you, but my wound was abandonment. Right. My wound was abandonment. I didn't feel like anyone ever wanted to fight for me or wanted me, that I would just irritate them and I get shipped off to the next person and the next person and the next person. So this wound is there with me. And what happens is I don't have God to help me with it. I don't have anything to help me with it. My friends all let me down. I mean, that's just human nature, right? So I fall in love with a girl and, and that was my piece, my first like true love, right? And all my hope was in that. And when that fell apart, my wound evolved. So here I am. I'm like, okay, so this girl, didn't work out, crushed me, broke my heart harder than I ever thought my heart could be broken. And so then I became the wounder from that point on. I said, okay, I'm never going to let anyone get the best of me from that end. So from that point on, I became the cheater. I became the liar. I became the manipulator. And my goal was to inflict as much trauma as I could while making myself feel better with like conquest and womanizing and all those things throughout all this time. During this time, I was 16 years old and I was working out and I was big. And I was hanging out with guys from the gym. So I started bouncing in a nightclub. I lied about my age, said I was 18. I'm bouncing in 21 and older nightclubs. And next thing you know, I start dating older women and then, lying about my age. And I'm like, why am I going to school at 16? So I dropped out of school at 16 like a knucklehead. And I was a good student when I wanted to be. I could easily get an A if I wanted it, but that wasn't where I was at. And I went off and got a job in the Teamsters Union. So here I am. I'm living on my own now. I'm 16 years old. I got a nice car. I'm 17 now. Got a nice car, apartment, leather couch, everything that an immature, 17-year-old thought would be the key to life. And then the recession hit and I got laid off. And then I really turned into a absolute scum of the earth, basic criminal that just never got caught for anything. And I did that for about 3 years until eventually here I am at 20 and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to, I had no hope. Right. And I'm so glad this is called the Hope Report because when I had no hope, there was nothing I wouldn't do. There was no, I'd break any law. I'd do whatever it took because I had no hope. I didn't think I could go anywhere. I thought my destiny was already written. So I was just thinking temporary joys to get me to the next phase. And some people would use drugs for that or whatever. But me, it was just, trying to, hook up with another girl or whatever. And so at 20, the light bulb went off and said, I'm either going to end up in debt or in jail. And I didn't have God at the time. But I was patriotic. I love my country. And so I decided that I was going to join the military. to redeem myself. I figured I'll serve my country. That'll redeem for all the things that I did being a knucklehead growing up, and save lives for the rest of my life, and and protect America. So the Marines had a really cool commercial. I didn't know, back in the day, I remember it was a chessboard with gothic music and slaying the dragon. They have the best marketing of anyone out there. So I went to go join the Marines. And when I got there, they're like, hey, how you doing? Let's see your high school diploma. I'm like, I don't have one. I have a GED. They're like, can't take you. I'm like, man, the Marines won't take me. Well, what am I going to do? Well, Rambo was cool. He had a couple cool, well, maybe I'll go be a Green Beret. Army, the same thing. I'm like, man, Navy? I don't want to be in Navy. I like girls, and I don't want to be on a ship with a bunch of dudes. Again, you can see my maturity level here, right? So I'm like, man, all right. So Air Force, I guess I'll go talk to the Air Force. I don't know what I'm going to do in the Air Force. I started daydreaming about being a pilot or something. And of course, they weren't even working. They don't work on like Wednesday, on Thursdays and Fridays. They take the long weekend every day, every week. So I go in the Navy, and because I remember a friend of mine was a CB, and they get to carry guns, and they're not on ships typically. They build bases, and he was making a lot of money driving a big wrecking crane. So I went in there, and they couldn't even help me, but they took my number. And then they called me back. And they said, they took my number and they said, hey, we have special programs that come up from time to time. We might give you a call. So they called me a few months later and they said, we want to see how dumb you are. Come down here. So I come down there and I take the ASVAB and I smoke the ASVAB. And now everyone's calling me. And I said, well, I'm going to talk to the Navy first because all you guys are too cool to talk to me in the beginning. And we're going to see what we can do. So I go down there for my job description. I'm like, I want to be a CB. And they're like, well, CBs are full. We want you to be a nuke. And I'm like, a nuke? I'm like, guys, I got a GED. They're like, no, your thing says that you'd be really good at being a nuke. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be in a nuclear submarine or on a reactor in a boat with a bunch of dudes under the ocean. No, that's not happening. They're like, and then they're like, well, what about gas turbine, this, that? And I'm like, no, I'm not going on a boat. I want to be a CB. And they're like, you realize this is the Navy, right? And I'm like, yeah, I get it's the Navy, but my friend was a CB. I'm going to go to lunch. And I'm going to come back, have a cool job for me. So I come back from lunch and they hit me with some other job that was like technical. And I'm like, no way. And then they were like, well, you're an in shape guy. You ever thought about being a SEAL? And I'm like SeaWorld? Like training dolphins and sea lions? I love sea lions. And they're like, no. And they, and they slid the paper over and it read like a James Bond novel. And I'm like, why didn't you show me this from Go? 6 years right here. Boom. Pow. So I signed up for that, went in.
Wow.
And tried to fill that hole. Like before I was filling it with women or alcohol or drugs or whatever. And now here I am and I'm trying to fill it with camaraderie. Right. I figure here's a group of guys that'll never let me down. We're going to be tight as the brothers that, tighter than anything I've ever known. It's going to be amazing. Right. So I go into that, and the SEAL teams are a very interesting place. You have a complete, you are a rock star. Everyone likes the SEALs. Everyone knows about them. They have their own groupies. And you're a professional athlete traveling the world, training, doing all this stuff. And before the wars kick off, there's not a lot going on other than training and practicing and training and deploying and being on standby and training. So it turns out to be, you're just on this worldwide tour, shooting guns and blowing stuff up, but you're also a rock star in the nightclubs at night and having a great time. And here I was pouring all this in, and it wasn't filling the hole inside me.
That must have provided a huge amount of validation, just being welcomed into this elite group. Like, we want you to be part of us.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a welcoming, right? You have to prove yourself. That's like, if people ask me, what was your favorite part of the military? My favorite part of the military was actually BUD/S training, which is the hardest part of the military, because there, just surviving every day was an accomplishment. So you had measurable accomplishments every day as more and more people left and rang out or fell away, and you were still there progressing, right? So it was validation on a daily level. And yes, it was suffering, and yes, but when you suffer with people in a general mission, you have a bond and you have that camaraderie. And in buds, there's not a lot of turning on one another. That happens later. In the beginning, the officers in the beginning of their career, in buds, it's run by enlisted guys. So it's beat into them to take care of your men. That doesn't last very long after training, unfortunately. So buds was just a place where everything made sense. You had standards. Standards were either met or they weren't met. And you were either there at the end of the day or you weren't. You could eat as much as you want. Buds is not a starvation school. You've got great food. You're in San Diego and you're living on in a beachfront condo during the training. Now that it's not the nicest place, but literally the surf zone is 100 yards from your door. Right. So again, it was amazing. Right. My first attempt at buds, I got stress fractures in my legs and I got I got dropped. I got sent to the hospital for 18 months and I came back. And the second time I went through, I ran and took my stress fractures all the way to a break, but I made it through Hell Week with a broken leg.
Wow.
And so they kept me and then I was allowed to heal and I continued on. So I was at buds for a while. And again, like I said, I loved it. It made just a place that made the most amount of sense. And every day you're just working out at least 2 times a day and learning cool stuff and just laughing more than you would imagine, because in Misery with the right people, you just spend a lot of time laughing. And then, I went out and went to the SEAL teams, went to the East Coast, and it wasn't what I thought it would be. It was a lot more high schoolish than I thought, where there were guys I had tight bonds with and there were some great times and I miss that camaraderie more than that's the only part of it I miss going back. But, my brokenness and that hole in me was still affecting. I was not nearly as good of a SEAL as I could have been if I had filled that hole with God beforehand, because I was still dealing with the issues. I was still a broken person. I was still going out and partying and trying to find happiness in other ways instead of glorifying God with my performance. So I was doing things that were counter to me being, I was out in the bars with my buddies every night because I craved that camaraderie.
During those times you were searching for all these different Band-Aids to fix that pain and fill that void. Did you ever feel the tug? I know you had said you were an atheist and you didn't have an upbringing.
Diehard atheist. Yep.
Did you ever feel that pull of there has to be something more than this, or, this leads to emptiness? No,
my indoctrination into secular reality was so strong. Anybody who didn't believe in evolution or the Big Bang was crazy. They believed in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and Jesus was just another one of those things. And I would purposefully seek out Christians to try to use my logic on them and to try to shake their faith. And I remember at one point, I was in buds during Hell Week, and guys were praying there at my table for God getting them through to that point. And I lost my mind on them. Like, nobody got you through this. You guys did the work. No one did. Just how stupid and how vain of me. Right. But atheists are angry people because they want to be there to be a God. They just can't believe. They just find themselves hung up in the religion of atheism, which is this belief in random nothingness, instead of divine creation, when, science is going to prove God. I've never been afraid of science. I'm not I think the Christian church did a lot of harm in the beginning, running away from science during the 80s and the 90s. And, and it made us all look pretty bad at some point. Whereas I think now we find out, what? There was a really big flood that shaped everything. It wasn't the Colorado River that carved or whatever river it is that carved the Grand Canyon. It wasn't a little trickle over billions and billions of years. It was massive amount. And I get to see that with my own eyes here when we had some flooding here. It just changed everything. And now that we've seen that happen, they're like, what? Something did happen. There was a worldwide flood. And that's becoming out now. So everything that God said back in the day, and this book right here is turning out to become more and more true, and not what they tell you. So the other part is I remember I'm terrified of heights, right? And here I am, a SEAL, and I'm jumping out of planes for a living. And I remember being scared to death up there, and I had to act, put on this big pose like I was jacked up, and I'd have the most angry music playing in my head or in earphones, whatever it could to get me angry, because anger was my fuel. Anger got me through my entire life until I found God. So it was where I could go when I was scared, right? And I knew if I could get angry enough, I could do anything, right? And that's what got me through training. But I was sat there and I'm like, man, these Christians, they're so lucky. If they go out there and they jump out of this plane and their chute doesn't open, they're going to paradise. Whereas if my chute doesn't open, I'm going to be worm food at best, but I didn't
thought that.
Yeah, I really thought that. Right. And I'm like, man, if they're right, but I'm like, there's no way they're right. So I, continue to serve. I go to Iraq. I go to Southeast Asia. I go to South America, Kosovo, Germany. I've been all around during all this time. And I'm still dumping everything I can into this wound, and I'm just degrading. I'm not happy. But I did love my job because it was the status. It was my identity. And then when I was gone, I lost my little brother to a heroin complication. He got hooked on. When I stayed behind, my mom kept him. And like I said way back in my story, and he just went down a very different path. And it started with OxyContin. And then OxyContins, after he stole from everyone and did everything and conned everyone because he couldn't afford oxys, he got on heroin and then went down a very dark path. And I remember going to his funeral, and I was at his funeral and none of his friends were there. And I was furious. I'm like, how could they not be here? And I cornered one of his friends that was there. And I said, where is everyone? And like, Jay, they're already all dead. They're already all dead to heroin. An entire class or generation around him just wiped out to drugs. And that was the kickoff to the opioid epidemic of the time in the Northeast. And I'm like, so I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm tired of making other countries safe and not my own. I'm going to go fight in the war on drugs. So during that time, I went to, I made that decision. So while I'm over in Iraq, I pass a kidney stone and they have to take some imagery for that. And they find a mass on my kidney. And then they find a mass on my lung. And then they find a mass on my adrenal gland. And they're like, Jay, we don't know how long you're going to be around. So, they offered to send me back. And I'm like, no, I'm staying. So I stayed in Iraq, finished my tour, came back, and they're like, hey, over Christmas vacation, or Christmas leave, we don't know get your stuff in order. We don't know how long you're going to be around. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I went through all this stuff and I'm going to die of cancer now. This is just amazing. So they sent me to shore duty to get this all taken care of. They sent me to Panama City, Florida. And when I was down there, Panama City, Florida, as you know, was a party capital, right? It's a party capital. And I'm married at the time. And I'm down there and I'm like, you know what? I am not going to waste away as a cancer patient, be this 98-pound dude who's just a shell of himself. So I just started living like a rock star when I was down there. It was an easy job. I was on instructor duty and all this stuff. And I just went down this very continued to be destructive. Marriage was falling apart. We really grew apart. And our plan on there was we were going to divorce and go our separate ways. I was going to go to Boston and my ex was going to go to Charlottesville, Virginia, where her family was, and just cut our ties. But while I was there, so then it turns out I don't have cancer. And I didn't want to come to God weak, right? I remember saying that. I'm like, everyone's like, well, have you thought about it? I'm like, no, I'm not coming to God weak. I'm going to come to him on my terms. So vain, so stupid, right? So here I am, I think I'm dying. And then it turns out the thing on my lung was artifact. It was nothing. The thing on my kidney turned out to be a giant blood blister from a parachuting accident. And then my adrenal gland had a mass on it and they went in, they pulled it out and it turned out to be cancer. So I went from you're definitely dying to nothing.
Wow.
Right. And I'm like, man, so now I'm really partying. And I'm like,
and how old were you then? About 20?
So no, at this point I'm in my 30s, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in my 30s. I'm coming towards the end of my career. So I went at 20. I'm like 36, 37, we'll see. And this book makes its way into my life. Called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. My ex brought it back from work and thought I might want to check it out. So this is an amazing book. I don't know if I've talked to you about it before.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Who's the author?
It's Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing Geisler's name right. It's Geisler. But this is a science-based book that goes into the probabilities of this being random chaos. And what it shows you is that it takes far more faith to believe in random chaos than intelligent design. Right. And then it gives a case for Christianity and how we know the Bible's true and how we know it's authentic. Because, of course, I would say, how can you trust a book that was written over thousands of years and this and that? And they go into how many different manuscripts they had and all the different things they had. It's just a remarkable book. And it was key to me being saved. And I used it as well with my wife, Lauren, who was an atheist herself. And that's another story where.
What prompted you to even pick it up and read it or have any interest in it?
I don't know that part. I don't recall why I thought I'd check it out. I've just sit there and I said, I was always a scientist. So if this was a science book on faith, I was open to it. I just couldn't bear to believe that it was true. I wanted it to be true. I just thought of myself so intelligent, and so rational and so logical that there's no way that this is true. So if there's some science out there, I was open to science. Science was my religion, right? So this started speaking to me in my own terms. So then I went to an alpha class. So this book took me from atheist to agnostic in its pages. And I'm like, I'm going to give Christianity the first shot at this because he wrote the book that got me here. So I went to a alpha class in a Methodist church and it was cool. I said, the sinner's prayer and asked for Jesus to come in my life. And I remember getting a feeling where this is going to sound crazy, but my whole body was tingling from head to toes. It was almost like I was hypoxic. I've been hypoxic before, getting ready to do the underwater, 50-meter underwater swim in buds. You just hyperventilate. You build up so much, CO2 in your system that your whole body just starts tingling every square inch. And it was like that, except I wasn't breathing like that. And it was this incredibly warm feeling when I asked God to send the Holy Spirit into me. Yeah. And I'm like, I just must have imagined that. I just rationalized that away. That's crazy. But I became a Christian and I'm like, hey, I'm going to Boston. And I remember telling my alpha minister that I was going to, and he's like, oh my God, you're so lucky you're going to Boston. You need to go to this church called Park Street Church. That's where Gordon Hugenberger is. And I'm like, Gordon, what? Like, Gesundheit. What did you just say? And it turns out that that Gordon he's a genius. And he is he's in the oldest church in America, which is Park Street Church. It was the tallest building in Boston forever. It's been there. It's been a part of the Underground Railroad. It's a part of America's like birth and foundation. And like, it's got an amazing history. So it was right up my alley. So I go there. My plan with my wife is we're still going our separate ways. I go up there, I go to Park Street Church and I meet Gordon Hugenberger and I become friends with him. And Gordon is a very special guy because Massachusetts is the right armpit of secularism, and as San Francisco is the left armpit. So here he has all the college professors from all around coming to him that are in Harvard, that are in, you just pick a college. Boston's got more college than them. They're coming to Gordon to be reaffirmed in their faith. And so his sermons are like PhD level courses. And they were amazing in what I needed at that time for me to be an intellectual Christian. I was not spirit-filled yet. So I was in intellectual scripture, learning what it meant to be a Christian and all these things, but I didn't have the heart healed yet, right? So my ex or she wasn't my ex at the time, decides to come up to Boston, wants to give it a go. And she thinks having a kid is the way to do this. And I was stupid. And I agreed to have a kid. And of course, it made things worse. And then our kid turned out to have autism, which was a level of difficulty beyond, anything that I could even imagine at the time. And that just completely, just destroyed what was left of our marriage. We tried to slow things down. I was on the SWAT team in Boston. I had the best job, cool job. Here I am, riding around a motorcycle during the days and doing SWAT team stuff on the other time. I mean, it was a great job, getting paid good money. My ex was a nurse anesthetist, so she was making good money. So we're both making bank. Life is great as far as that, except our marriage absolutely is terrible. So, when my son was diagnosed with autism, we realized that we had to throw as much of that as we possibly could. And when you're on the SWAT team in Boston, you don't have a life. You're always doing, you're either just working normally, you're doing escorts because you're also the motorcycle team. You're doing dignitary escorts, you're doing warrant service, you're protests, the whole thing. So I stepped away from that and moved to Charlottesville, Virginia. And I needed a job doing something that paid well because we had bills that were, that went along with the salaries that we had. We adjusted to a lifestyle. So because of my background and because of, my contacts, I got a job bodyguarding a guy worth $52 billion. And I got to do some amazing things, travel around the country, but it was great because I could live anywhere in the country and they would fly me in for 30 days and then fly me home for 30 days. So it was back to being in the military where I was kind of in and out the whole time. And that's what I was doing here when, and then I started my gym. And let me clean this up because where we broke, I had a couple different things there. So I came back, I was doing that and I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do 6 months out of the year gone, I might as well be in the military or something. So instead I started my own company called Trident and Shield, which was a gym and an active shooter training company. And I was training, heroin addicts in the morning for free to try to get them to, find some value in their lives and get some pride and to get away from it because I thought that was the way to fix it. I was helping veterans who were, who had PTSD and was trying to get them to mentor other people who were getting ready to go in the military and all that. And during this time, my friend Mike Ferrugio was trying to get me to ORW and, Operation Restored Warrior. He's like, you got to go. It's great. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm a solid enough Christian on my own here, even though I'm in the middle of a crisis of faith. And he's like, he finally talked me into going by convincing me that it would give me skills to help the heroin addicts and the veterans with PTSD and everything else. And I kept putting it off for a while, but my favorite place on earth is Lake Tahoe. And ORW for once, which is normally in Colorado, was in Lake Tahoe that one time. And I'm like, that's it. I got to go, man. I got to go. This is the one I'm going to. So I went out there and I met Paul Lavelle and I went through this amazing experience where they introduced me to Jesus and I got the healing that I had. I identified my wound, which was obviously, as I said before, abandonment, and got the healing I needed. And it changed me 180 out from what I used to be. It was huge.
How long ago was that, did you say, when you went to RW?
I want to say 2015. 20, maybe might have been 2014. Again, it's all kind of a blur. My wife and I met in 2013, so I'm thinking it was about 2014. And it was funny because my wife, I remember telling her before I went to RW, I'm like, listen, I got to figure out what I'm doing. I can't stay in this middle of me either being agnostic or being a Christian. I need to figure it out. I go, do you want to come on this journey with me? And she'll tell you in her testimony, she's like, yeah, I'm going to get rid of this stupid Christianity stuff. We're going to be fine. I got them. No problem. And of course she was baptized a few years later. Both of us got submersion baptized together on stage, and it was amazing. So I go to RW, and Lauren will tell you, because I was sneaking calls with her, even though you're not supposed to have technology. I was sneaking calls where she's like, by like day 3, my voice changed. Like there was so much peace in my voice, and all the anger was gone. And it just, that's why I got to tell people, I know so many intellectual Christians that until you're spirit filled, you're not where you need to be.
Right.
Right. So that's really my born again date, is when I got spirit filled at ORW. When I finally met Jesus and came to an understanding and finally reconciled my problems with the Father. Right. I've always had a problem with Father because I didn't have a father growing up. My grandfather, did the best he could, but my dad was gone, and, he had another family. And again, that just contributed to, me having more resentment. So because I didn't have this father figure, I took that out on God, right? The Supreme Father.
Yep.
So anyways, I do that, I come back, I tell, I never wanted kids in my life. Once I got healing, I instantly wanted to have kids. It just became part of who I was, and Lauren wasn't there yet. So, because she was still an atheist at this time. So in order to save her, I started a small group in my house with the sole purpose of getting Lauren saved. So we pulled in all of our tight Christian friends, and we made it fun. We drank wine, we did, different studies, and we had a blast. And we actually saved 3 marriages throughout it.
That's amazing.
And it was just absolutely an incredible experience that we had doing that. And at the end of it, Lauren gave her life to Christ and was baptized in it.
Great.
And all doing that. So anybody who wants help ministering to their atheist spouse, I can help you I can tell you what worked for me. Anyways, so
you didn't have any resistance to the small group. Hey, we're going to have a Bible study or have a bunch of people over.
Lauren's always been exceptional. And I said it was important to me. And I'm like, I'm not trying to say you got to believe this. Just check it out.
Yeah.
And she was like me. She was willing to explore things because she didn't know nobody wants to believe that you die and then you're in the dirt and you're warm food and that's the end. Right.
No one wants that. Our eternity is built into our hearts.
Yeah. So, anyways, it was funny because I remember I had finally reached my breaking point. We've been doing this small group for a while, I think almost a year at this point. And I'm like, you know what? You're not going to come around. It's okay. You don't. She's like, well, how do you know I'm not ready? I'm like, reverse psychology was the one thing I didn't try soon enough. I should have tried that sooner. And she's like, I'll show you. And next thing you know,
pretty effective.
We're giving our testimonies. But the thing that I want to tell everyone is your testimony is never over. Like that's where I typically wrap my testimony up right there. And since then, there have been ebbs and flows in my walk with the Lord. And my latest breakthrough was a massive breakthrough. And it wasn't too long ago. It was earlier this year, like January. I'm one of those guys where I think I can outwork any problem. Right. If I have a problem, it's my job to fix it. And, and I'll just outwork the problem until the problem's exhausted and I'll beat it. Right. Mm-hmm. That's my thought. That's the seal in me. And here I was trying to, I'm one of those guys where I'm a perfectionist when I'm doing things. So when I'm trying to do a project, I want everything to be the best. So step 1 has to line up with step 600. Right. And if it's not perfectly straight line, I'll sit there and be like, okay. And I'll try to, through a force of will or whatever, and try to do all that. And of course you can't control what's going to happen in the future. Right. Mm-hmm. So my prayer life at that time was, Lord, help me, give me business, this, that, because my company Trident and Shield was doing amazing before COVID-19. We had a record year. We were looking at our pipeline. We were going to 5X our record year. And then COVID hit and we went to 1/10 of our current pipeline. Mm-hmm. And, and that really rocked me, and I'm struggling. I'm trying to outwork this, right? So I'm praying for more of this, more of that. God help me, God help me, God help me, God help me. And you're supposed to petition Lord with your problems, right?
Right.
But I never put him at the focus of it. And my life really changed once I figured out that, and I prayed the most dangerous prayer you can ever pray. And I said, Lord, you made me for whatever reason, you made me for a purpose. You brought me to this point. I give you permission to send me anywhere. I just ask that you send me in your will, not my will, your will. Send me where you will. I won't put any restrictions on it. If you want me to go to Africa, I'll go to Africa. If you want me to go to California, I'll go to California. I'm not going to put any parameters on it. If you have a mission for me, send me, and be obvious about it, because I'm thick-headed.
Yeah.
And within 2 days, I was talking, on 2 opportunities popped up for me. One was this podcast. Out of nowhere. I had no idea.
Within 2 days?
Within 2 days, my company got a massive order in, and things just started like taking off like a rocket ship in all aspects of my life. The house that we ended up, we're going to be moving to Tennessee, which has been my dream. Got a dream house with 44 acres down there that I can shoot, do a ministry like I want. I want to start a church down there, and I want to do a mentoring ministry, teaching people how to mentor, because that's really a lost art that we've lost, that we all need, and you talked about that in your testimony with your daughters, how you talk to your daughters and you're there mentoring them and all that. And it's so important. And I just didn't have a mentor. And it caused me to drift and do all kinds of things and have a very painful experience until I started finding mentors. And I've acquired some good ones now. And my life has been exponentially better.
That's an amazing prayer that you said. And I think I met you early on in the midst of that, or when Paul brought you into the picture.
That was about a couple months after that, or no, we talked on the phone, actually, not too much after that, because of I had to write several proposals and different things. And then he brought you on board to talk about it. And that prayer is stand by, but you have to mean it. You can't say God send me and not take off, the training wheels. You can't put parameters on it. Right. And just say, I am done living for me. I'm going to live for you now. And all I want to do is to the glory of God. And every day, let every day be a testimony on my faith and my love for the Lord. And, because until I did that, I was without a fuel source. Like, this is the one part that I thought ORW kind of struggled with, or I struggled with post ORW, which is a part of the Lindell Recovery Network, was they got rid of my anger, right? But they didn't give me another fuel source. Yeah. So I was like this, I was just adrift without having anger to fuel myself. And it was so challenging not having, that incredible Hulk strength when you don't want it, or that intensity when you need it, and knowing that I was sinning if I was doing it, and it was just like, man, like everything was taken away from me that made me who I was before. And then once I could switch that fuel source to glorifying God, then everything took on meaning way beyond the instant or what it was amazing. About, so.
I love how you said, be obvious, because I say that too. I say, in my human pea brain, sometimes I can't see the signs you're showing me. So please, and not being fearful or being selective of this is what I'll do. Or that, it sounds like your prayer was heard and it was a powerful prayer.
It really was. And I've been blessed beyond belief, because I thought, to kind of backtrack a little bit in this, I tried to move during the COVID epidemic. We tried to move to Maine, where my wife's family is, to be around family. They're in their 70s, and we wanted to be closer to them if things should happen. And with COVID going on, we didn't, I'm a prepper, I'm somebody who wasn't sure what was going to, I took COVID extremely serious in the beginning. I was I knew it was air. I was the first to call. I called it airborne, like right around January 7th, because I was seeing how it was spreading and looking at the charts. That's before everyone. That's before all the multi-million dollar firms. That's everything. Like none of this makes sense unless this is airborne. So I'm going to the grocery store in mask, goggles, because if it's airborne, it can get in my eye. I got multiple layers of sweats on, gloves, and I'm just taking this ridiculously serious. And then I started looking at the data and I started relaxing, and now I don't do any of those things. Because it's again, now I understand what we're talking about. But I don't know where I was going with the story.
Well, you were backtracking a little bit with how it sounds like you gave up control to the Lord. I mean, I see you're very type A, very organized, you make things happen. And if something's not happening, you're going to find a way around it to make it happen. But you kind of let go. You sound like you surrendered to, hey,
that was the key.
Do it.
That was the key. And that has been a sore spot for me with the Lord the whole time. Like when I thought I had cancer, I didn't want to go to the Lord weak. I wanted to go to the Lord because it was the right thing to do, not because I needed him. Right. I serve the Lord, not because I want a reward. It's because it's the right thing to do. Like the right thing to do is so important to me. And it's the justice that's put in our hearts. And, and once I fell in love with Jesus, which, again, to continue on with my testimony, The Chosen is a big part of my testimony lately, because The Chosen, I always loved the idea of Jesus, but The Chosen helped me fall in love with Jesus because I got to see who he was as a man, as a son, as a friend, and that just had such a profound effect to me. I'm like, that's the guy I've been searching for my whole life. I want that guy in my life. That's who I want my mentor to be. So I know what's going on. So I figured out where I was going and why I was talking about COVID. So we tried to move up to Maine, and we were going to go to Maine because of Lauren's family, and they live in the southern part of Maine. And then a friend of mine's like, you're going to Maine, it was like Gordon Hugenberger again. You need to see Ken Graves. And he sent me a clip of Ken Graves preaching, and he preached like no one I've ever seen. Fearless. He talked about politics. He talked about all my biggest beef with the church. And, my axe to grind with the church is so many of the churches don't talk about today's problems and apply the Bible to today's problems. They think the Bible is for the problems of the past, and it's not. It's a part of every solution going forward. So I'm like, that's it. We are looking for houses, and I'm like, I got to study under this guy. The one house in the entire state of Maine that would take us with our 3 dogs was 12 minutes from Ken Graves. And then I met Ken Graves, became, close friends. And now he's one of my spiritual mentors. I'm just so thankful of it. So even though you pray for God to open doors and close doors.
Yes.
So as a SEAL, I will kick open a door that God has closed. And that's what Maine was, right? Maine, it was the hardest move I've ever done. It was like every door was getting slammed in our faces, and I didn't want to take the signal and said, I'm going to just do this anyways. And I thought I was doing God's will because Ken Graves was there. And everything went wrong when we were there. Like everything went wrong. Like my relationship with my in-laws and my marriage, which has no strife in it ever, now has strife because me and her in-laws aren't getting along at all. And it just really complicated things and just made things terrible. And then once I surrendered, like I said, once you have God has his hand on your back and you pray that prayer, everything just takes off like a rocket ship, and it's God's will. Like today, here we are, we're getting ready to close on a house, and like today, the enemy rolls in, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like 4 obstructions, massive obstructions fall in our way. And that's a test at that moment. Are we going to lose faith in God and stress out and start derailing and trying to take control of this? Or are we going to say, me and my wife sat and said, God, you got this? We're on your path, your will, not ours. If it's your will that all this blows up right now, so be it. Within 3 hours, all those problems. That was bizarre.
You're back.
Yeah, the whole thing. So what was the last thing you heard there?
You were saying to your wife, God, if you got this, this is your will.
Yeah. And within 3 hours, everything just completely turned around and all those things went away and fell in line. So, we passed the test. Here we were being challenged. We could have lost faith and we could have been rocked. Instead, we just leaned into the Lord and said, okay, I'm willing to give this all up right now, even though it's everything I want, if that's your will.
I love that. It's so freeing. It's hard to give up control, but he always delivers. He's so faithful.
Yeah, he's so faithful. But like, even if he did send me to Detroit or some place where I would never want to live in a million years, he's going to bless you wherever you're going.
That's
right.
true.
And wherever you're at. And, I think I'm going to Tennessee for the rest of my life, but who the heck knows?
You're open.
I'm open. Well, I just said, God, again, God, just do what you will with me. Do what you will. Send me on any mission you want. And I'm there for it because, you bless me with the woman of my dreams, an amazing family. And I'm just like, as I sit here, I don't know anyone luckier than me or happier than me. Right. So, because
beautiful.
Yeah.
That really
so I'm just so thankful for it. I'm just so thankful to be able to say I'm blessed. And that's why I really feel a calling to minister. I really want to start my own church. I'm not the most well-versed in the Bible, but I know how to apply the Bible to today's challenges. And, and I just need to, again, I think thicken up my understanding of the Bible. I will start a church and, I already have a ministry on Patriot Crusader Mission, which is a podcast, another thing where we teach people again it's about mentoring and preparing and defending your family. And I just want to do that in my community. I want to be a part of the solution. And I want to build a church that's like Ken Graves' church, where, like I said, where people show up with their problems and when they need help instead of going to the government.
Amen.
Yeah.
The church should be a help center for people in need, not just someplace you go once a week or
exactly.
Whenever.
If the church, and that's where we have to get unlazy as Christians. Like a lot of us just want to show up on Sunday and be done and then show back up on Sunday and it doesn't touch the rest of our lives, right? It's just our Sunday thing or our Sunday morning thing, if you want to really narrow it down, right? Well, unfortunately, life is messy and you're going to have to get involved in people's lives if you want to have an impact.
That's true. Yeah. You have to invest in people and do it more than on occasion. It has to be part of the life you're living, the offering you're giving.
Yeah. So, to everybody who says they're in a spot, I said, well, how much are you investing in other people? Like why, if you want to know why you're not growing, it's one, you haven't found a mentor yet. And two, you haven't been giving back enough.
Right. Yep.
You got to give back. And then you'll see when you're having a profound effect on people and you're changing lives and you're bringing people to Christ, it's a beautiful thing. It's and I hope that we get these with this show, like I do a Patriot Crusader Mission, where people tell me, hey, I haven't read the Bible in 40 years and I'm back to reading the Bible. Thank you.
That's what we hope for. Yeah.
Because that right there, that, we've been a part of people coming back to the Lord, and there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than that.
You're right. That's so true. Just listening to your testimony, when I listen to people, I'm finding connecting points, and our stories are so different, but there's so much to connect about. And even when you're talking about being a SEAL and the desire for the camaraderie, and we all need a sense of belonging in a group. And what better place to find that than with, people who love Jesus, who can share that love with you, because there's this God-shaped hole, like you said, you fill it with different stuff. And your story, looking at how God had his hand upon you is really fascinating, even though you had that generational curse on your family from way back before you were born that the enemy had a plan to take you out and to get you invested in all these things in the world, and how God drew you out of that. He was just beside you the whole time. And then it sounds like ORW is sort of the culmination of a lot of things.
It was. And again, that's why there's so many different levels to this Christian life. right? Like, again, recognizing that there's a God and calling Jesus, your Lord and Savior is one thing, but then being spirit filled is completely different, right? I know when I'm out of tune. When I'm out of tune, I am a different person when I am out of tune with the Holy Spirit than when I am with Him. When I am with Him, everything goes better. I'm the best version of myself.
Yeah, I don't think I was spirit filled till about 2013. And like you said, I have much more I can talk about as we go forward about, like you said, your story does not stop, and God has done amazing things. When I thought, once I get sober, life's going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
Just transformations that have happened only because of Him. That He was the only one that could have saved me from some things that have happened. But it evolves. You're never like, this is my testimony in a box. It's going until you die.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and once you've accept God's mission for yourself, like where, He's made you better at something than anyone else at it, right? Whatever it is that you're amazing at, or whatever He blesses you, whatever your culmination of skills and experience to set you up for whatever it is that He wants to do for you. Once you embrace that, it's amazing, because you're not doing it for you anymore. You're doing
He
it.
Equips you. He equips you for it. I like what you said. I just sense this. You're very bold and fearless, and that's what I want more of. I want to be, and Mike Lindell is like that. Being with people who speak their truth, as Steve Bannon calls it, being a honey badger.
Yeah.
You like you said, this is who I am. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anybody else. You're very bold with that. It sounds like you have no reservations about how people are going to take that.
Well, it's gotten to the point now where it's trust in the Lord. Like when the Lord took away the contracts, from people who were like, hey, you voted for Trump, you're a Christian conservative, you're not for abortion. Well, we can't do business with you. And I'm like, fine, don't do business with me. Right. I don't want your business. Now, before that point, I knew who they were, but it wasn't, it was just, I didn't want to put a prerequisite on it. But now you're going to like force me to deny who I am. I'm not playing that game. So if the world comes from me, the Lord will provide. Like during all of our times and all of our trials, when our business took a 90% loss revenue, God always provided different ways, and money just showed up in different ways to pay the bills and to keep us from falling behind. And people stepped up in our lives that we didn't even ask for, just to contribute to keep us going. And now here we are, doing amazing things, working with you, for Mike Lindell and the Lindell Recovery Network, with the ability to, reach countless people out there through Frank and through other social media sites, as well as still doing my personal ministry at Patriot Crusader Mission. And like I said, the end of this week, as of Friday, I'll be living in Tennessee. So the set's going to look very different. Yeah.
I love you just said, if the world comes for me, the Lord will provide. I feel like that's a powerful quote that people need to get down in their spirit. You don't need to fear anything in the world when God has got your back. And you can, it can look like it's going to hell in a handbasket, but God always comes through when you're living for Him and walking with Him.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I know I'm going to have hard times again, right? I know there's a coming. That's part of it. But, every one of those times I'm going to grow stronger. And, for prayer life, I want to, talk to people a little bit about prayer. Imagine if every one of your prayers came true, how unfulfilling your life would be, how soon you would have settled, right? I just think of back in my life, if my first girlfriend didn't break up with me, where I would be. Yeah. I would not be a Navy SEAL. I would not be the CEO of my own company. I would not be all the things I turned out to be.
Right.
I would have, I'd be still stocking shelves or driving a forklift in a warehouse. That's fine, but that's not what I'm doing now. And I am the happiest. I don't know anybody as happy as me. And again, I'm sure other people are, because I don't know everyone. I'm just saying that beyond belief, I wake up every morning and I am just thankful I pray to the Lord before my feet touch the ground. I'm like, Lord, thank you for letting me wake up again this morning and the life that you provided for me. Let me live it to honor to you today. Help me walk deeper, closer with you, and help me honor you with all my actions today. And when I do that, I try to do that every morning. Some mornings I forget, or something gets up, or, the dogs start barking at 4 a.m, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, that's my intention. And when I do that and I walk that, when I go to bed at night, there's just like, my heart just feels so full.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's an amazing walk with Jesus, and he can redeem any broken piece of us, anything the devil has tried to steal. He tells us he'll restore all the years the locusts have eaten. And I didn't talk about this in my story, but I was married before too, when I was really young, because I was living outside of God's will and I wanted to get out of my family. And same thing with fear of abandonment. I wanted to find a man and get married really young. Ended up, I got pregnant, and I have a beautiful daughter who's 26 from that marriage. But the marriage was a disaster from day one because of me insisting on not waiting on God's timing. But then years later, and like you said about unanswered prayers, and in the moment I wanted it to work out, but I'm so grateful that God showed me what the future would be like, and that he released me from that. And then years later, when I was sober, he blessed me with another life, with a beautiful marriage and 2 more daughters. And he really does redeem those years that you think you've wasted time, or I'm behind, or I didn't do this or that. And he just has a way of advancing you. Way beyond what you could do in your own power. Yeah.
And the key is surrendering to that, so he can do that. Because if you don't give him permission, he's not going to do it.
Amen.
You got to give him permission in your life to do his will. And once you do that, stand by.
Stand by,
because it's going to take off like a rocket ship. Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up today. And, I got a lot of editing to do with this.
No, I just want to thank you for sharing your story, and just the ORW. I'm so grateful that we have that on the Lindell Recovery Network, and that people, even if they're not a veteran, that anyone can access that, and they don't have to be limited. Oh, I have to go to a treatment, or I have to have a lot of money to be able to do this. That's been made available to anybody, because it's such a powerful course.
Yeah. And how would they find that?
So that's and Mike put us through it on 5 women at My Pillow, or with the company. He enabled us to go through it, and it was an amazing experience. They can go to LindellRecoveryNetwork.org, and then it's under option C. So after you get your access code by watching the featured testimonial, you can get into door C, and that's the ORW course. And the companion PDFs are in there as well, so people can do everything along with watching the videos.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to me today. I hope I didn't ramble. Awesome. I know I was all over the place. So.
No, it was great to get to know you. I loved your story. You've been through so much. You have an amazing story. And I think a lot of people can relate to many of the things you talk about. And those are a lot of the wounds that many of us have.
Yeah. John Eldredge writes about it in a lot of his works, where, as men and women, as we're going through, as we're transitioning from kids to adults, you need a rite of passage. You need somebody to take you under, their wing and mentor you and turn you in, to let you know that you've got the right stuff, to bestow that God-given identity on you. And when they don't, the world gives you an identity, and that identity is not a good one.
That's the truth.
So, well, thank you, everyone. Melissa, you want to pray us out?
I would be happy to. Lord Jesus, I thank you so much for this time today. Lord, I'm so in awe of your faithfulness and how much you love us. And Lord, I thank you for Jay and his powerful testimony, and how you had your hand upon him and were pursuing him throughout all the years of his life. And I'm so grateful that you've brought him to the place that he's at now. And just, it's so amazing to think about how our paths would intersect, even though we're on different ends of the country, and that you brought us together for this shared purpose. And I pray, Lord, that many lives would be touched through Jay's testimony. And we ask for your blessing over this podcast, that it would all be for your glory, that you would get us, out of the way to the level that we just want to do your will. We want you to show us what to do. And we surrender to whatever you want to do with this. So Lord, I ask that you bring the right people, the people who need you, people who need hope, people who are lost and searching and broken. I pray that they would find this and that they would find hope and healing through what we're going to do. And we just thank you that you put it all together. And I ask for a blessing over Jay and his family as they travel to their new home in Tennessee. And thank you for everything you've done to just make that happen, this new chapter in his life. And I plead the blood of Jesus over everybody who is in hearing the sound of my voice, and over Jay and his family and my home as well. I pray all this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. All right. God bless everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Hope Report. If you were blessed by this episode, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels.